Hello, this is Tony Kelly from Birmingham's Breakthrough TV, Our Health is Our Wealth show. Now, in the studio today, my guest is Dawn Carr from Birmingham. I must say, we've known each other for a while. Our paths have crossed, especially on the health and well-being agenda. You're very passionate about it. I'm so pleased to have you in the studio today, Dawn. Welcome.
And thanks for having me today, Tony. You know that it was an offer I couldn't resist, so thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Okay. Now, let's start with you telling the viewers and listeners a bit about yourself, your background, your upbringing, your childhood.
Okay, well, I'm a daughter, I'm a mother, I'm a grandparent, I'm also a sister. I'm 51 years of age. I'm obviously from a Caribbean background, so I was born here in the UK, but I'm from a Jamaican background. Both parents are Jamaican, and I was born and brought up in Leicester. So originally I came from the Leicester area, moved to Birmingham when I was in my 20s, and lived here ever since, really. Okay,
so you love Birmingham and decided to stay. So let me just go back to the Leicester bit before you came to Birmingham. What schools were you at in Leicester? What was schooling like? More high school like as a black youngster growing up in the Leicester area?
Well, I was kind of like in between. So I went to primary school in Leicester, within the Highfields area. So if anybody knows the Highfields, it's like Handsworth.
I see. Right.
And so I was brought up on a council estate, and it's like any other council estate. It was like predominantly black people on the estate, and it was a very mixed school. So I was quite lucky that way. Then I did do a spell here in Birmingham as well. I went to high school at Bartley Green Girls' School, and then went back to Leicester after that. Leicester's a very quiet town, so there's not very many opportunities and stuff like that. So so I tend to just like worked and just kept myself to myself, really.
Right.
Yeah.
You said Leicester was a quiet town. I suppose that's back in the day. People living in Leicester now will beg to differ and say that's not the case anymore.
I think compared to Birmingham, it is. It's very sleepy. Right. And like when I was growing up, there's probably only about 5 Jamaican families in Leicester. Most of them come from like Barbados, Trinidad, and other islands. So we had a very close-knit, community. Everybody knew, the Jamaican community all knew each other because there's not many in Leicester. And there's a high Asian population, so within that area
yes,
as well.
and that still remains the case.
Yeah. All
right, so you settled in Birmingham and you finished high school. Move on a bit to your immediate family. You mentioned you're a mother and grandmother. You don't look old enough to be a grandmother, but still. Tell us a bit about your immediate family.
So obviously I'm married, and I've got 2 sons, which are not from my husband. They're from a previous relationship, and they're 30 and 27, so they're grown and left home. I have a granddaughter who's 9 as well. And so that's it really. I'm just a busy person, and I've got a sister, and most of my family live here in Birmingham as well.
Oh, I see. Now, your immediate family then, which is you at home, is yourself and your husband. We're in the middle of a second lockdown. How have you coped with the first lockdown and now the second one? How has that been for you and your husband?
Well, for me, Tony, it's like my first thing is, what is lockdown? I don't know what lockdown is. I didn't have that the privilege of having a lockdown.
I like that answer.
I'm not saying that I'm Mary Seacole. I'm no angel, but during lockdown, I did a lot of serious community response work.
Well done.
Food banks. Making sure the elderly are safe. Making sure that people in the community have enough support. So I didn't have the privilege of a lockdown. However, I did learn a lot about myself. I learned some new skills. Learned how to use Zoom. Like
haven't we all? Even me as a technophobe.
Learned how to do live streaming. So I've come out of myself. I think I've grown as a person because of what we had to do for lockdown. But other than that, I didn't experience a lockdown.
Right, so that's one of the advantages of COVID-19, the ability to use technology more. I like it. Join the club, Dawn. All right, going back to after you left school, what was your first job?
Okay, so obviously I went to college and everything. So when I left school, I did a lot of part-time jobs. You know, working in McDonald's, shoe stores and stuff like that, as you do when you're a young teenager. And then this is a bizarre story. So I was somebody said to me, I saw this book, and I don't know if you know Tony Sewell. He used to write for the Voice newspaper.
Yes, well-known.
He's a well-known
yes.
journalist, and he wrote a book called Garvey's Children. And somebody said to me, I saw this book, and there was a picture, and it looked like somebody who looked like you. It wasn't me. It was a picture of like some girls in Jamaica, but somebody said it looks like you. So I went to this bookshop in Leicester, which is called Radle Bookshop. It was a bookshop and a record shop as well. There was quite a few of these back in the day,
Black-owned.
Bookshop. So I went to this black-owned bookshop called Radley in Leicester to go and get this book because I was like intrigued because I wanted to see this person who looked like me. And I fell in love with the place. So my first job was at this bookstore called Radle Bookshop. So I used to work there, selling books, selling records, and we also had like a project which was funded to teach people IT and stuff like that. And then my first real job, this is with not black owned, in terms of the main jobs. Was for Hogg Robinson. It was an insurance company. So this is like a well-known insurance company that did lots of claims, and for fire and stuff like that. And I started off as just a temporary worker. They wanted to keep me, and I stayed on, and I worked there for quite a few years. Worked my way through the organisation, and I worked for a project that was called Special Projects. So what we would do is investigate court claims. When claims would go into the court. So we used to do all the back work. And in those days, it's hard to imagine now because, we've got the internet and we've got, all of this technology. What I used to have to do was go into archives and go through days and days of archives, going through information to prepare it for the solicitors to take to court. This is something you do at a touch of a button now, with just like your files on in your Microsoft and things like that. So it's amazing, and the difference in those days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I said at the very beginning that our paths have crossed quite a lot, especially on the health and well-being agenda. We seem to always turn up at most of the events and so on. Because you are, in my view, what I would term a real community organizer, activist. When did that actually start in your life? Because here you were in a office setting and doing all that behind the scenes works and so on. When did you get that buzz for, hey, I want to help my community, this is what I'm about? When did that all start?
Okay, well, even though I'm a married and successful person at the moment, it hasn't always been that way. So I used to live on a council estate in Ladywood. And I was a single mother, didn't have much money. I mean, when we talk about Marcus Rashford and this new child hunger initiative, that was me. I used to struggle to get to the end of the month and pay all my bills and feed the kids and stuff like that. And what I used to do is get involved quite locally in lots of local neighbourhood work. And at the time there was this network which is called Ladywood, Aston, Nechells and Soho. And what we used to do is it was like just local residents who wanted to make the neighbourhood better. So it would be litter picking, doing wellbeing programs, residence programs, making people get involved in in voting and all sorts of different things. It's typical community organising. This is the model that made Barack Obama quite famous. So he used community organising as a model to kind of get where he was. And we used the same model when we were at the Ladywood, Aston and Nechells network. And so I did that, and then through that I kind of grew as an activist, and I became involved with work around equality. So I started working, so before that was all voluntary work, what I did before, it was unpaid. My first paid work, as a kind of community worker, was with Birmingham Racial Attacks Monitoring Unit. And what I used to do is predominantly support young, black people who'd been discriminated within the community. This is either in housing, education, within the workplace. But when I joined it at a time which is quite phenomenal in Birmingham's history, when we had a really high-profile case, which is about Mikey Powell. So Mikey Powell is like our Birmingham equivalent of George Floyd.
Right, yes.
Yeah. So so he, he was somebody who had, a kind of psychotic breakdown. His mum, called for the police, and there was the police restrained him unnecessarily, and he died as a result. So that was a high profile case that in Birmingham. So I led on that campaign with others, obviously, and supported that campaign. So it was a baptism of fire for me in terms of getting straight into the deep end and sorting out that campaign. So that's basically how I got in it. And then through all of that, I went on to do more equality work. I worked at the Commission for Racial Equality, also at the Legal Services Commission, doing as an equality performance officer. I ran a programme called Improving Reach, which is about funding for black communities, in order to bridge that gap in terms of equality.
Wow, that very, very varied and very wide set of things you've done there out in the community. I'm going to bring it back closer to 3 organizations that you have quite a lot of involvement with. I'll do them one at a time. First of all, black people are known to suffer from strokes more so than white people.
Absolutely.
And the Stroke Association, in reference to the black community, you've been involved in that from a health angle. Tell us and the viewers a bit about that, the Stroke Association and your involvement.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're quite right. See, black people are twice as more likely to get a stroke than, non-black people. And this is due to quite a few things. I think most black people have a lot of long-term health conditions like hypertension, diabetes, that can lead to a stroke. And then there are unhealthy habits as well, like drinking and taking a lot of alcohol, which can also lead to having a stroke as well. I mean, they say that obviously if you're from a certain background, then you're going to be more prevalent to have a stroke anyway. And as I said, through my equality work, I also ran a 3-year project which was about raising awareness of stroke, in particular to the black community. Because prevention obviously is better than cure. And what I learned from that is one, for me, when I joined the Stroke Association, at that point I knew nothing about health. So again, it was another baptism of fire. So I had to, it was a quick learning curve for me, and I had to learn a lot. I went through intensive training so that I was able to go out and engage with people and obviously advise them on stroke, and a lot of training on stroke rehabilitation. And what struck me is that there are many different types of strokes. You can have a mini stroke where you have like a funny turn, and that's a warning sign, but when people do have a stroke, it can be quite catastrophic. You could lose your speech, you could lose the use of your movement, your arms. You could lose your cognitive abilities, a range of different things. But what was really remarkable, Tony, is that I could see people bounce back. Wow. And that's the wonderful thing about the human body, that you are able to bounce back after something like that. I mean, it's not the same for everybody. Some people, unfortunately, do die in the end, but most people bounce back. But as I said, prevention is better than cure. So when you get that warning sign, that the mini stroke, that wake-up call, that's the time to make the changes. That's the time to make the changes in terms of healthy lifestyle, healthy eating, more movement, cutting out the unhealthy habits like smoking and alcohol. And you can hold off the effects of a stroke just by turning your life around. So for me, that was what was the most remarkable thing.
Wow, that's fascinating, Dawn. Another organisation you've been involved with, and so have I. I no longer am involved with them.
So I started working with key agencies, so that I could work with their user groups in order to raise awareness of stroke, and that's how I came to Diabetes UK. So I signed myself up to be, at the time, it was called a Know Your Risk volunteer. And as a Know Your Risk volunteer, you'd be trained to go out into the community. So you'd be in like shopping malls or like, you know, in community centres, parked out in this van, and literally calling out to passers-by, asking them if they wanted to take a risk assessment test for diabetes. Again, prevention is better than cure. And what the thing about diabetes and stroke as well, it's like a ticking time bomb. So you could be walking around, you thinking you're perfectly well and you're going through life, and you don't realise you've got this ticking time bomb. And as a Know Your Risk, a volunteer for Diabetes UK, the amount of times, you know, I approach black people in particular on the street and said, you know, just come, you know, and you know, I'm good at coaxing and and encouraging people. So I say, just come and have the test. You never know. I know. I'm very persuasive. So in my persuasive way, I'd get people to come, you know, have a test and everything, and just see if they're at risk of diabetes. And lo and behold, I would say, right, probably about 70% of them were. And we're not talking about people who are obese or look unhealthy. And we're talking about healthy people just walking around shopping malls, just doing their thing. So I'd like to think I've saved a few lives through that.
Well done to you. Well done. And another, as if you don't do enough, Dawn, you're involved as well with the Vascular Dementia group. Tell us about that in terms of cultural sensitivity support services around vascular dementia.
Okay. First of all, let me just explain what vascular dementia is.
I was about to say, some listeners might need to know what that is.
Oh yeah, I think that's really important because it is something that is affecting our communities and not spoke about very much. So vascular dementia is about, you know, the reduction of blood flow to the brain. So it's not like a stroke, it's a gradual reduction in the arteries. And with that gradual reduction, it can lead to, you know, either confusion, memory loss. It could be that your mood might change. You might become more aggressive or more subdued. You know, it affects everybody differently. The sad thing about it is there is no cure for vascular dementia. It's one of those, you know, from onset it will gradually get worse. So for people with dementia, it's best to live well with dementia. So the reason why we need culturally sensitive services for people with, you know, vascular dementia is in living well with dementia, it's important that you do have culturally sensitive support. And I'll tell you the reason why is when you're actually supporting somebody with dementia, first of all, music therapy is really, really important. And also, obviously, exercise. We know exercise is important. But it's important to allow people to reminisce. So when people have dementia, what they may do is forget their memory, their memory now, their short-term memory, but they've got a really good long-term memory, and you've got to keep those brain cells stimulated. So in keeping those brain cells stimulated, it's important to have reminiscence conversations, to work with the memory that they do have, to do music therapy and stuff like that. But for many black people here in the UK, if they go back, say 40 years in their memories, those 40 years maybe they could have been in Jamaica at that time, or any Caribbean, wherever they came from, you know, before they settled here in the UK, or it could be memories of their actual settlement here in the UK, and that actual settlement could be quite traumatic. It could be, you know, the struggle to find housing due to, you know, racism. It could be, the trade union job that the trade union at your workplace when you was a bus driver. You know, all of those different things. But you've got to help support those memories, and obviously when they're thinking back on those memories, they're going to think about the tunes that they used to listen to, the music that was at their wedding. And if they're in mainstream support, people who are supporting them might not understand these memories. They might not understand, the things that they're saying, and disregard them because it doesn't make sense to them. So it's really important to have culturally sensitive support for people with dementia.
I get that loud and clear, Dawn, and I'm so glad you've explained it in such crystal clear terms.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Now, you're trained in nutrition and deliver health checks and weight management workshops for Weight Off Workshops Limited. break that down for us, please.
Okay, so this goes on to the culturally sensitive support.
That's right.
Yeah, it does. We talked about the fact that there are, lots of people, and this is not just black people, this is globally. People are a lot more obese, got a lot of long-term health conditions as a result of their obesity or unhealthy lifestyles. And what I did, I set myself up with a partner. So she's based in Hemel Hempstead, believe it or not. And we both run weight off workshops, and I do the West Midlands division. And the technique we use is not diet fads, it's not Weight Watchers, it's not anything like that. It's just about being mindful of our bodies, and I'll break that down to you. So the technique that I use is called remove, restore, and repair. So I'll break that down for you. So remove, restore, repair. So the first bit is to remove all the toxins, parasites, unhealthy bacteria within the body. Yeah. So in order to do that, you need to obviously cut back on sugar, junk foods, and and I don't need to go through all of that. I think we all know it. That, yeah. Yes. So cut back on that, but take it a little bit further. Obviously, drink more water. Make sure you get plenty of sleep, and I do like to introduce intermittent fasting, because fasting helps to kind of like cleanse the body, as well as the water. And maybe some supplements like activated charcoal, just to remove all the toxins out of the body. I did a play scheme last year, and one of the things that came out of it when I did the play scheme, we had to do a risk assessment, and lots of young people now have what we call food intolerances, and food intolerances are a result of the fact that our bodies are infested with toxins, yeah, and we need to kind of remove those. And half of the times when we feel unhealthy, we could have a headache or we could be feeling lethargic. It's because of the toxins that we've got in our bodies as a result of what we're eating, the environment, things that we're adding to our skin and things like that. And so it's important to kind of be mindful of that, and to remove those toxins. And it's an elimination process. It doesn't happen overnight. You start slowly. You don't just the one day just cut out all of those things. Gradually. So just gradually. Then the next bit is the restore phase. So once you kind of started to strip out the toxins, you need to restore the body. So you need to flush out the liver. So I say milk thistle is a good way to to flush out the liver naturally. Also to kind of take prebiotics and probiotics to repair the guts. And then I would say, going back to this food intolerance thing, most people only eat about 12 kind of food groups, foods, on a regular basis. So everybody's palate has changed, which also leads to food intolerances. And realistically, we need there's probably about 146 vitamins and minerals that we need to eat to maintain our body. Yeah. But it's impossible to do that with a busy lifestyle, with the access to food that's available, and a range of different things. But one thing I do say is that if you take sea moss, so sea moss has 102 of those minerals that you need. So just by adding a supplement, which is sea moss, then without having to eat a lot of things, then you then get yourself to optimal health, where you should be if you were eating, all the things that you need to eat. So that's the the kind of restore phase.
Well, before we go on to the other stage, just to let the viewers and listeners know that you are going to leave towards the end of this interview the websites where people can go and get all this information, because you've bombarded us with so much information. Even I've learned so much from listening to you.
Oh, thank you.
I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I'm gonna have to go. I thought I was eating healthfully. I'm gonna have to look at myself again.
You'd be amazed, Tony, but you're healthy anyway. I mean, you are an inspiration to us all, and that's the whole reason why me and you are friends.
Yes,
because I just see when I was in stroke. I know I'm going off key.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But when I was
we're having.
Absolutely, when I was in the Stroke Association, as I said, I was amazed by people's recovery, but I never ever met a black person who was able to turn around a long-term health condition until I met you, Tony. And you know, I always use you as an example when I'm talking to people and saying that, you know, just through, you know, adopting a healthy lifestyle, this is where you can be.
Yes.
Yeah. So
thank you for that.
No, thank you.
Right, it works both ways. So remove and restore, and the third one.
So is repair.
Right.
So repair speaks for itself. Start to eat healthy foods. Start to get regular exercise, regular sleep, repair the body. Sleep helps to repair the body as well. And in the repair phase, it's like, again, I'm not going to be prescriptive. You know, everybody is different, and it's about a trial and error process. And you know this, Tony, yourself. But what if I was to advise anybody, like 4 key foods that they should eat in the repair phase, is salmon or shellfish, or any kind of, because of the high omega 3 content, which is good for the brain and good for the body as well. Avocados, and the reason why I say avocados is because if you're stripping down all the sugar and all the unhealthy things out there, your body does need a little bit of healthy fat. It's not good not to have, you know, any fat, because what happens is the vitamins and minerals are fat soluble. So they need the fat in order to be, you know, to absorb into the body. So avocados are a good way of having, you know, healthy fats in the body. So avocados, any berries, so strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, any berries. They're high in antioxidants, and you know, which are obviously good for the body. High in vitamin C, which helps to repair. And you know, and they're tasty. You know, they're very tasty, and also pomegranate seeds as well. So that's really good. And then the final one, and it speaks for itself. And I hate to say it, but we all have to say it, is your greens. So kales, broccoli, you know, anything that's green. You know, this is all part of the repair stage. But moving on, because we're in this kind of COVID environment, make sure you get plenty of vitamin D, plenty of zinc. And I've said vitamin C already, but vitamin C is really important. But vitamin D, so going out, having a good walking, getting the sun on your body, as well as if you have to take a supplement of vitamin D, take a supplement of vitamin D. But it's very, very, very important during this current environment.
Oh, that's a very good advice you're giving. May I then, before, it's not a question I had in mind to ask you, but I think I'll ask it though. We've had COVID-19, the coronavirus, lockdown, pandemic, all of those words. And Dawn, you and I know it has impacted and affected disproportionately our black people in terms of the high death rate, in terms of the high rate of people ending up in intensive care units, in terms of a number of black people who have ended up getting the disease, been infected. Give us your take as to why that all is.
Well, I mean, obviously, COVID is really new, and I'm not a medical expert, so I can only give my view on this.
That's correct.
I think, first of all, with coronavirus, many black people live or work on the front line. So they're working in environments where they're either in the NHS, or they could be like delivery drivers delivering parcels to people, working in shops. They're on the front line, so they're exposed to COVID a lot more than other communities. A lot of, you know, black people are not as fortunate as me and you. They live in really poor housing conditions where they're unable to do social distancing, or have, you know, live in environments that don't allow them to protect themselves. I mean, like I said, during the lockdown, which I never experienced, you know, I worked in, you know, with homeless people who live in domestic violence, you know, refuge centres, you know, a range of different, you know, environments that people don't consider, didn't have to consider during lockdown. So they're exposed as well. A lot of our black men are incarcerated and in prisons, and so they're at risk at COVID in COVID there. But even though it's not just a poverty thing, a lot of, you know, high earning people like doctors, physicians, you know, they also were at risk because they were supporting people, you know, against the COVID. So that's one of the things. But then I think, and I'm going to be honest, I think the main reason why our communities are at risk is because they have lots of long-term health conditions. This is before COVID. You know, they weren't, you know, taking care of themselves, and you know, we have high blood pressure, diabetes, you know, all these things that we've just talked about, and not just one, many of them. Yeah. So if see the thing is, if you're fighting a virus, your immune system has to be at its peak. So if your immune system is trying to kind of cope with, you know, this long-term health condition, plus, you know, the stress breaks down your immune system as well. This is the stress of lockdown, you know, and then obviously you've got the virus to deal with. It's a lot for the body to take on. So I think those are the main reasons, you know, the long-term health inequalities that exist within the Black community. So we do have to take responsibility. There are a lot of health inequalities. There's, you know, there's a lot of systemic racism. I'm not saying it's not there, right? And then, you know, there as I said, there's poor housing, you know, poor, you know, social economic conditions. But there are things that we can control, and there's things that we cannot control. And I would rather work with the things that I can control, you know, as you know, myself. So that's my, you know, that's my approach to it. Yeah.
Now, Dawn, tell us, what is your current role in your working life? You've done so many different things. So what do you actually do now in terms of your working life? Tell us a bit more about that, please.
Okay, so I work for an organisation called Legacy WM, which is an organisation that kind of champions the legacy of the post-war migrant community here in Birmingham. So it started off by doing heritage work about migrant communities, of which I've got a lot of knowledge of doing heritage work, and we'll talk about that in, you know, in terms of my Black Heritage Walk. But like what I do is I work as a health and wellbeing officer at the moment. So we've got a huge project which is funded by Big Lottery, which is a health and wellbeing project called Family Fit. And it is what it says on the tin. It's about getting the whole family fit. So we work from cradle to grave. So, you know, I work from pregnant women right through to young teenage girls and boys. You know, families, you know, everyday families, schools, colleges. I work with men over 50, women over 50, menopause, you know, perimenopausal, all those different things, all the range of health conditions that I spoke about, as well as end of life and dementia. So so it's cradle to grave, and it's about getting the whole family fit. And how that's done is through working with families to do social prescribing. So just to explain what social prescribing is, yeah. So social prescribing is not new, but it's, instead of like GPs actually prescribing a prescription, and you'd be amazed how much medication people are taking nowadays. So instead of prescribing a prescription, it's about subscribing health and wellbeing, lifestyle changes, support within the community. And that's done through a link worker. So that's what I do. I'm the link worker. So as a link worker, I'm, you know, directed, you know, through the GPs to go and visit people who've got long-term health conditions, or it could be they could have anxiety or depression or mental health problems which stop them from being healthy. And rather than put them on medication, they're you know, given a social prescription. So, and that support is about active signposting within the community, goal setting, working towards, you know, really small achievable goals, you know, in order to improve their lives, but really about kind of discharging them into the community, making sure that they're taking part in what's going on around them and the range of support that's available.
Yeah, that's good. I'm very much into the social prescribing agenda, so we're joined at the hip on that one, Dawn. Trust me. Okay. Moving on then, Dawn. Kindly tell the viewers a bit more about this term, and I saw it in your bio that you sent to me. This is my city, Birmingham, an arts, sports, and cultural program in the run-up to the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games. Share some of that with us.
Okay then, so I think everybody's aware that, you know, in 2022 Birmingham will be hosting the Commonwealth Games, and obviously, you know, as I said, I come from a Jamaican Black background, you know, which was part of the Commonwealth, and I think Birmingham has quite a lot of communities who are part of the Commonwealth. And but there's been a lot of criticism because when these initiatives come and go, the community, the real community, doesn't benefit from it. And I don't know whether you saw I think it was about 6 months ago, there was a bit of a social media uproar where they showed that the committee for the Birmingham Commonwealth 22 was all white. So, you know... Except
one person.
Apart from one person.
I'm involved in the campaign to get them to change that.
Absolutely,
yes.
Yeah. And this is always a reflection of how our communities are directed by people who don't understand the community and have no connection with it whatsoever. So when we found out that, you know, the Commonwealth 20 was coming to Birmingham in 2022, through UCAN Birmingham, so Legacy WM is a member of UCAN Birmingham, which is a membership organisation of sports coaches, therapists, community groups that exist within the North Birmingham area. So they led a consultation to find out what would people like to get, you know, out of the, you know, this investment in the city through the Commonwealth Games, and how would they like to engage with it. And we came up with this programme which is called This Is My City. So the key things that came out of that consultation is people felt that Birmingham had something to share in terms of its food. You know, the many different varieties and diverse communities here have got something to offer in terms of food. So we've got a programme that's called Dishes, which is part of This Is My City. And that's a food school where we go out and we teach people Commonwealth dishes, you know, just how to cook, you know, food from Commonwealth countries. Then the second part was about the heritage. So people felt it was important that when people come to Birmingham during, you know, 2022, that they understand the heritage of the communities that exist within Birmingham. So we call that the pillars of, you know, the Commonwealth, because within Birmingham, it's those Commonwealth communities that are the pillars of the community. So that's that part. Then obviously this is before COVID. You know, it already came out that there were health inequalities within the you know, the at the time. But I'm going to say BAME, but like, you know, it's the Black Asian, you know, community, but in particular in the Black community. So there's a mobile health outreach program that's part of that, you know, the part of that. And then the fourth bit, to make this all sustainable, because the Commonwealth will come and go. 2022 is only around the corner. So how do we leave a legacy within within Birmingham and within those communities that we aim to serve? And that's through having a festival. So a festival is about celebrating what all these migrant communities have to offer in Birmingham, through dance, through arts, through culture, through, you know, health, sports, whatever it is. But in celebrating it, having a festival which will raise money and can be put back into the same community programmes that we discussed, the health outreach, the heritage programmes, the food programmes. So that goes on year by year, to have an annual festival that will, you know, will self-fund the project. So that's really what it's all about.
Exciting times ahead. Yeah. Let me just take you back, as you didn't really touch on it as much as I would like you to. The whole issue of the legacy in terms of the walking. You have these walking groups. Yeah. Tell the viewers and listeners about the walking groups and sites you visit and so on, and encouraging people to do more of that movement. Yeah.
Well, anybody who knows me knows that I love walking. So I'm not a gym bunny. I'm not the kind of person who goes to the gym and you know does all this. I should do, but I don't. I'm going to be honest. But how I maintain my fitness is through walking. I make sure I do regular walking every day. That's what I do. If I'm going somewhere, sometimes I'll park the car, like, you know, 2 roads down and then walk up to where I need to go to. I walk most mornings. And what I did, I first started off running a walking group which still exists, which is called Dawn Walkers. So we used to get up early in the morning and go walking before we go to work. You know, get it out of the way, and then, you know, go off to work. And there's, you know, a few people of us that still do that. And it's the reason why I like walking is because it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't matter what background you come from. It doesn't matter, you know, what fitness state you're in. You don't have to be, you know, super fit to walk. Even if you've got low mobility, you can just walk at your own pace, you know, how you want to. you don't need any equipment, you don't need any money, you just need to get out there and it's just your time in terms of walking. And it really does have some good health benefits. I mean, obviously it's going to, keep your bones strong. You do lose fat when you're walking as well, but it also helps to clear the mind. And when you're in a stage like this where you've got so much going on, there's all Black Lives Matters, pandemics, all sorts of things going on. Sometimes you just need to go out and just clear your mind, just walk and just have some time to yourself. Or if you're walking with others, socializing and having conversations that is very difficult to have right now. And with the tier, the system that they've got for COVID at the moment, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, whatever it is, the one thing that's been consistent through all of that is walking. But going back to the heritage bit, so I've got a healthy interest in Black heritage, and I've led on lots of projects. And I told you I used to work in that bookshop. So I've got thousands of books around, Black scholars, Black heritage, and stuff like that. And I was toying with the idea of putting together a Black walk. And when you go to other cities, other countries, there's a Black walk. You can go on a Black walk as a tourist. You can go and you can go on a Black walk, but there wasn't one in Birmingham. So I kind of consulted with other people. So it's not all my work. I consulted with Marcia, who's a school teacher, and she runs a supplementary school, a Black supplementary school, right here in this building at the Millennium Centre. And I spoke to Gary, who's from Recognised Black Heritage and Culture, and many others. And I said, what would a Black Heritage Walk look like here, in Birmingham? And initially we chose Handsworth, and the reason why we chose Handsworth is because that's where most of the Caribbean community settled. But it wasn't just about the Windrush generation, because as you know, Black people have been here in the UK right back to probably 7,000 BC. This is before Christ, So that's another story to tell. And if anybody wants to know, you can come on, my Black Walk, and I'll let you know. But if you just start with the Windrush and the community that we're serving at the moment. At the time when we put the Black Walk together, there was a huge scandal about the Windrush generation. And we were coming up to the 70th anniversary of the Windrush boat coming here. And I talk to lots of young people, go to lots of schools, and believe it or not, if you speak to the young people, until that scandal came up, they didn't even know about the heritage of their own grandparents or their own families, right, who was settled here in Birmingham. So first of all, we thought, well, let's tell this story first. Let's put this walk together and talk about, the achievements of the Windrush generation, in Handsworth in particular. And this is before Windrush. This is people settled here in Handsworth, before the war, in the First World War, the Second World War, before that, there's a long history of the Black community, especially in the Handsworth area. So that's the walk that we put together, and it's just grown. So now we have 7 walks. So so there's 7 walks altogether. So we're in lockdown again. And if anybody, is struggling and thinks to yourself, you want to get out there, you want to walk, and you want to, find something different to do, then do a Black Heritage Walk, because it's real good fun. You don't even realise that you're walking, because you're talking about the heritage. It's something that the whole family can do. Grandma can do it, grandchildren, the whole family can do the walk. And they learn along the way and share things as well. Yeah.
I'm going to endorse that a lot, because I've lived in Birmingham 41 years, and I go all over parks and places and so on. And I'm going to be looking down the camera honestly and saying, I don't see a lot of Black people, and I'm talking us African Caribbean people. It's cheap, it don't cost anything. I do see a lot of Asian people of all ages out there early morning, late evening, afternoon, what have you, walking. Some of them are using Zimmer frames, even walking sticks, and they're walking. And I think, well, where are us, the African Caribbean people, in terms of getting out there, movement? And I'll say to anybody who will tell me, Tony, you're talking a load of baloney, that is fact. And I'm glad you've started this walking, both the heritage one, the legacy one, and plus you yourself are a walker. That's to be encouraged, and I really hope our viewers and listeners take on what you're saying in that regard, Dawn. Now let me ask you, leading such a busy lifestyle, what do you do to relax, chill out? Where's the me time?
Well, believe it or not, I am quite artistic. So, I mean, I do like decorating. So I like interior design and decorating, and I tend to like decorate my own home, other people's homes. I mean, I've recently just done my aunt's house, the whole of the ground floor, during, you know, this period because there's nothing else to do. So I like decorating. I like gardening as well. So I've got a healthy interest in growing my own food and you know, and obviously keeping a tidy, pretty, you know, garden and stuff like that. So I do like gardening as well, and that again, that helps me to keep fit. It helps me, you know, to clear my mind, you know, and so those are the things I like doing. And going back to, because we haven't talked about the mental health, you know, in terms of the impact for COVID.
Absolutely.
And
As a matter of fact, it was my next question.
Oh, that's
yes,
good. So what I do, I mean, we're all human, and I'm just as human as anybody else. But what I do, you know, in order to take my mind off things, is knitting. Believe it or not, which is a dying art. I mean, I love knitting. People are always shocked, yeah, when I say that I like knitting, because I don't look like somebody who knits. And during lockdown, when I did have some spare time, what I did do was a lot of knitting. And I find that when I'm knitting, it just helps me just close off my mind. I think you've heard of the term mindfulness. Yeah, it's about being in the moment. So it's about having that space where you're just thinking of nothing but what's going around you in that moment. And when you're knitting, you tend to do that. So that's why I find, you know, knitting quite therapeutic. And I think anything artistic is quite therapeutic. So so that's what I do in my spare time.
Okay. Because in a sense you've answered, I didn't use the word mental health in the next question, but it was, is there any advice you would like to give to the viewers, listeners, in terms of trying to cope in the current pandemic brought on by the coronavirus and COVID-19 and being yet in another lockdown? Any particular advice you would want to give to them? Apart, you've said quite a lot already, but is there anything else you think needs to be added to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing about coronavirus, and I think, is the stress level. And there's so much uncertainty. It's unreal. You know, we've had, you know, conspiracy theories. You know, is there a COVID? Is there not a COVID? Plus the stress of, if you do have families, and for those who have had family members who've been ill, and sadly some of, you know, are deceased, coping with the stress of that as well as, you know, work and, you know, the children at home and all sorts of different things. And it's crazy, and I think it's a shared anxiety. You know, there isn't one particular community that's suffering any more than others. But the one thing I'd say, and I think I said it earlier on, is that there are some things you can control and some things you can't control. And I don't think it's worth worrying about conspiracy theories, worrying about vaccines, worrying about is somebody wearing a mask and not wearing a mask. All you can do is control what you're in control of. And in controlling what you're in control of, I would suggest that you get a lot of exercise, whatever you can do, you know, within these lockdown periods. I talked about walking, but it could be just getting some weights at home and just, you know, doing some weights, a resistance band, just moving, you know, is enough. Plenty of exercise, plenty of sleep. So try and get as much sleep as you can. And it doesn't have to be a whole night's sleep. Yeah, it could be you sleep in the afternoon, you know, and you get up and then you know you go about your day and then, you know, sleep at night. But try and get that rest. It's really, really important to get rest and relaxation. And the other thing is I know that it's lockdown, but keep on connecting with people. It's really, really important. And connecting with people, you know, obviously we've laughed about the Zoom and telephone calls and all that lot, but it is about watching shows like this, Breakthrough TV, and just getting a sense of what's going on, and you know, and joining the dialogue, you know. So just keep connecting with people. It's very important at this stage to keep connected.
Dawn, I'm going to add two to that. You mentioned weights. Now, some people might start thinking, weights, Arnold Schwarzenegger. 2 cans of beans, or plastic bottles with water, and literally
Just
doing
sitting
that,
here, just
and
doing
to
that, yeah.
alternately,
That's all you need to do.
that's about. And another thing I must mention is where you said you kept on mentioning being in control. I'll give you one little anecdotal. It's a true story. An 80-odd-year-old woman rang me and she said she's depressed. And I said, why are you depressed? She said she gets up in the morning, she has her breakfast, she turns on BBC News 24 and watches that all day till she goes to her bed. I said, watching the news about COVID-19 and this. I said, no. Find programs like Hello, Hello, the Oliver Samuel Show, the Keeping Up Appearances, the Lenny Henry Show. Laughter is the best medicine.
Absolutely.
And don't sit down there 24/7 watching BBC News 24.
No,
that would depress. Switch it off.
Yeah, switch it
and
off.
go and find other things to do. Listen to music. Get up and do some dancing and jigging around and so on. And she said, Tony, that's the best advice. I said, well, haven't you been speaking to your GP? I can't get hold of my GP surgery. I can't get hold of anybody. And she said, it made the world of difference. You telling me, switch off that terrible news that is constantly. That was when every day they would come and they would do the numbers and how many are dying and how many are infected.
Yeah.
And I said, no. That will take you more down into a spiral. And I call, as you rightly said, connect with people. I have a list of elderly people that I call. So would you visit as well. But how are you doing? And a 2 days, and they're saying, well, shall we call you back? I said, no. I am the one calling you to find out how you're doing. You're on your own, you're elderly, you're vulnerable. I can't visit you, but you're at the end of the phone. And they say, oh, that's so nice to know you're able to do that. And you're doing that 10 times over as well. All right. Now, we're coming to the end, Dawn. We're in the social media era, and you've gotten caught up in it as well. Now, you shared quite a lot with us in terms of what you do. Tell us, for those who want to get in touch with you or know about some of the activities you're involved with, the websites, which our executive producer will also put up on the screen when he edits it. Yeah. But do tell us what websites, www.whatever, where people can link up.
Yeah, so for the social prescribing support, because I think we're in the second lockdown and a lot of people are going to need support. So for that, contact Legacy WM, and that's like legacy-wm.org. That's a website. So Legacy WM, so that's the website. And then the other one, if you want to join me on the walks or learn about your Black heritage or learn about Black history, and then the website address for that one is Black Heritage Walks Network. So it's blackheritageWalkNetwork.com, and that's the website. There's a Facebook page, there's an Instagram page, there's everything. So if you just put in Black Heritage Walks Network, you'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and that's the website address as well. You know, and
right, that's good to know. And viewers and listeners, I'm expecting you to be proactive and go out there and find all these things that Dawn Carr has shared with us. Now, what final thoughts would you like to share with the viewers and listeners on Birmingham's Breakthrough TV, Our Health is Our Web show?
Okay, so we're in a second lockdown, and it is disheartening. We have to do all that we can to kind of minimise this lockdown. So really just, abide by the rules, stay at home, stay healthy. As I said, take some of the advice I did. Choose this opportunity to reevaluate your life. If it's not being unhealthy or dropping unhealthy habits, learn a new skill or do something different. Take this opportunity to improve yourself, and I think we're going to come out the other end, a perfectly happy and healthy community. So I'm positive we will get through this, and let's just see the light, really. Yeah.
Well, Dawn, if you're anything to go by, and the positivity that you exude and put out there, I'm sure people will have learned a lot of stuff from what you've said. It's a pleasure talking to you on Our Health is Our Wealth show.
And thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed the experience today, and it's a really good show.
You're welcome,
Yeah.
and I was determined that I would have you on as in my top 10. I have a list of guests. I have about another 25 people to interview, but I just thought, no, I'm going to get people who I know are out there getting their hands dirty. I call you unsung heroes and heroines. So I'm not going for the popular people who have been around for quite some time. With due respect to them, they probably know who they are. I'm going for people who are out there doing stuff now and just getting on with it in a modest and humble way. And you tick all the boxes. I'm so happy you were able to make the time to come in, because you do have a busy schedule. Yeah. So once again, thanks so much for coming in, Dawn Carr, and sharing with us your journey.
Keep up the good work too.
I will
so
do.
much.
I will do.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thanks to our sponsors, the Afro-Caribbean Millennium Center on Dudley Road, New Style Radio 98.7 FM, Breakthrough Media Studios, and Breakthrough TV.